Welcome to part 2 of our lecture on tissues. In the first part, we were just looking at junctions and how tissues are held together. So we have two cells here. We have cell A and cell B. Now these cells are connected with a fused cell membrane right there. I did not shade it poorly. So the cell membrane is fused, and that would form a tight junction. So this does not let substances through. So fluid is trying to leave, it can't get through. Fluid is trying to get in this way, it can't get through. So that's our tight junction, a barrier between cells. And we'll see this in epithelial tissue lining our digestive tract, our respiratory tree, and the skin. And again, the tight junction is at the apex, which is the top. Now, we could have an adhering belt junction or adhering junction. Again, this is towards the apex, so this would be towards the apex. This is a loose junction that lets stuff pass in between cells or between cells. And in physiology, you're going to learn this is called paracellular transport. Now, I managed to confuse students with this other type of junction called a gap junction. The gap junction connects the cytoplasm. So I have calcium here, it can go into the cell. So it connects the cytoplasm. So things can pass from cell A to cell B. And what I did on a test once, and I feel horrible, is I used between in both the adhering junction, this is in between the two cells, and then between meaning from the cytoplasm of A to the cytoplasm of B. I had 60 very confused students, and there's only 26 people in that class, so I really confused students there. The last two junctions were desmosomes and hemidesmosomes. A desmosome connects the inside of cell B to the inside of cell A. It's actually connecting the cytoplasm and the plasma membrane to each other. So it's this bolt-like junction. So it's connecting the cytoplasm. I mean cytoskeleton. It's connecting the cytoskeleton. So it connects the cytoskeleton of A to B. Now the last one's a hemidesmosome. This is the base of the cell, the bottom, and it has a basement membrane. Now the hemidesmosome, it's again connecting the cytoskeleton, but there's no cytoskeleton out there. There's just the basement membrane. So the hemidesmosome is half a desmosome. It doesn't have the second cytoskeleton on this side. So this is a hemidesmosome. So I'm going to ask you what those are on the next exam. And you're going to have to explain it. You're not going to have to give me examples of where they are, just what is the definition. So we're going to look at now epithelial tissues. And notice, these all are lining something. So this would be an outside of some tube here. Here's some cuboidal ones surrounding a tube. So epithelial tissue, epi is upon, is lining stuff. You are going to contrast simple, pseudostratified, and stratified epithelial. You will be able to explain the 4 primary functions of epithelial tissue, and you will be able to state where they're generally found. I'm not going to ask you where each one is found. The one exception is stratified squamosal epithelial. We will talk about that in the skin chapter. It is the epidermis. I'm totally going to ask you where stratified squamosal is found. And you'll be able to identify the different subtypes of epithelial tissue in both lecture and lab. So, epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues are going to line parts of the body. So they have at least one free surface. This is the free surface. This is the free surface. Down here, there's no free surface. That's not an epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue has to have a free surface. And it has 3 functions. It protects. It stops chemicals from getting in. So we have a chemical, let's say ethanol. That's drinking alcohol. That is not going to be able to pass through your skin. It's going to be absorb things like absorbing nutrients. You are drinking your chocolate milkshake while you are listening to this lecture. It will absorb the chocolate and the sugar and the fat and whatever else they put in the milkshake. So you absorb things. Now secretion is the opposite of absorption. Absorption, things go in. So secretion, something goes out. So you go to your parents' house and they just baked a pumpkin pie and an apple pie and a pecan pie and a cherry pie. You're going to start to salivate. Producing saliva and saliva leaving your body is secretion. Now, after you eat the 5,000 calories in pies, you're like, I better go for a run. You're going to sweat. With the water leaving your body is secretion. So secretion's just leaving the body. Now, we are going to look at 5 characteristics they share. 3 functions, besides lining, so I guess that's a 4th function, and 5 characteristics. First, cellularity. It's made mostly of cells and epithelial cells. There's very little matrix. No, this is not a 1999 Keanu Reeves movie. This is something we'll talk about in connective tissue. Think bone. You don't see the cells of bone. You see calcium phosphate, calcium carbonate, calcium some other stuff. You don't see the cells because it has all this mineral in it. Or gristle on a rotisserie chicken. That's cartilage. The gristle is something called collagen fibers. So matrix is non-living parts. There's not really matrix in epithelial tissue. So we only have cells. So this is a lung alveoli. So you have these epithelial cells, like so. 2 is attachment. Remember those junctions? What's this top one on the top? Watertight. Tight junction. Attach the cytoskeleton to cytoskeleton. Desmosome. So it's attached by intracellular junctions. And to the basement membrane. Remember our basement membrane? I drew our 2 cells. Then there's this membrane below that they're attached to. Think of a sunburn. When you get a sunburn, whole parts of your skin will peel off at a time. This junction actually has to be broken for the skin underneath to heal. Now, your book calls them specialized contacts, but they're attached to either each other or the basement. Polarity. What the heck is polarity? So, here's our cells again. Here's our hemidesmosomes. Here's our desmosomes. There's probably a tight junction right there. The top part is called the apex. So that's the top. And this is my free surface. The bottom is the base, and that's connected to the basement membrane, sort of like our house. The frame is connected to a foundation. Epithelial tissues are connected to mostly elastic tissue. There's some collagen fiber in there too. And then you have some sort of proper connective tissue underneath. So polarity means there's opposite sides. There's a top and a bottom, or the base. So that's what polarity means. So cells are going to have an apex. This is the apex right here. Here's the tube, and this is a kidney tube. And the space is actually called the lumen. You'll hear me say lumen all the time. Now, the other side is the base. So this right here would be the base. And here we have tube 1, tube 2. So we have 2 apexes. Here's one apex. Here's another apex. So there's polarity. You have a top and a bottom. Now, look here. This dark fiber right there. That is called the basement membrane. This is mostly elastic tissue. There's some collagen fiber. There's collagen fiber, I swear, everywhere. And the base, or the basal surface, is attached to the basement membrane. So here we have the apex up here. And as Megan Trainor says, it's all about the base. Here is the basement membrane. So the basement membrane is just elastic fibers found between the epithelium. Here's the epithelium. And the connective tissue below. This is probably areolar connective tissue. So this right here would be the basement membrane. So here, the kidney, this would be the basement membrane that the epithelial tissue is attached to. Now, avascular. What is vascular? What's vascular disease? Blood vessel disease. So vascular is blood vessel. A means without. So it's without blood vessels. All epithelial tissue lacks blood vessels. So wait, I got a cut on my skin by a giant needle. What happened? Well, here's the giant needle. Oh, look. It goes all the way through the epithelial tissue and damages the capillary below it. That is why you bleed when you step on something sharp like glass or you step on a rose thorn. I really need to wear shoes, don't I? So, you're actually getting to the blood vessel underneath. Your skin's only a few millimeters thick. Then it regenerates. You step on that piece of glass, or you step on that rose thorn, or that blackberry thorn. The cells are replaced. So epithelial tissue has the best regeneration of all tissue. It grows back, and I've seen 5 days, I've seen 10 days, I've seen 20 days. Based on my own injuries, I'm weighing towards the 20 days. So epithelial tissue is going to regenerate. So, which is not a function of epithelial tissue? Protects us, yes, it's a function. Secretion, yes. Absorption, yes. Transmission of stimulus, that's nerve or nervous tissue. What are the characteristics? Can you remember? I did 5. First, it's made of cells. Second, it's polarity, an apex and a base. Do you remember which is which? The apex is the top, the base is the bottom. So apex is the top, base is the bottom. 3, it's attachment. So the cells are all attached to each other. In connective tissue, the cells do not touch at all. They're generally not attached physically to each other. They'll be attached with hemidesmosomes to protein fibers, but generally not attached. What's the next one? I'll even do it in red. Avascular. And what's the last one? Regeneration. It regenerates. So I might ask it like this. Which is not a characteristic of epithelial tissue? Regenerates poorly, avascular, no matrix. Cells are attached by tight junctions. Yep, that's right. No matrix means it's only made of cells, so that's a characteristic. Avascular, yep, characteristic. So it regenerates very well, so A would be the choice. So, in the next video, we're going to classify the epithelial tissues. And I'll ask you characteristics in lecture. I will ask you specifics in lab. So, thank you, and I will see you in our next video.